everyone. Thanks for joining the cycle of webinars #WeDareToShare. In this session, we're talking about flipped classrooms and how they can empower your students. My name is Joana Coutinho, and I'll be your host today. Let's flip the classroom together. A flipped classroom can be a great approach to make your students an effective part of their learning process. But before we can talk about it, it's also important to think about the difference between a traditional classroom, as it is called, and a flipped classroom. Well, I'm sure many of us can go back to those days when we found ourselves a bit bored, sitting in a classroom just half listening to our teachers as they spoke in front of us, right? And that's the idea we have of a traditional classroom. The teacher stands in front of the class, presents information, instructs, and then the students listen as a whole. At home, then, the students would do some practice. And this would be, well, let me tell you, a basic definition of a traditional classroom, as, well, there's a lot more to say about this. Then, well, in a flipped classroom, the process is a little bit inverted. The original idea of this approach was that before coming to class, the students would watch videos of someone presenting information, read a text, or listen to a podcast about a certain topic, and then the practice would be done the next day in class, where the teacher would monitor and help individuals, pairs, or groups of students instead of the whole class. Now, in a flipped classroom, we have a student-centered approach rather than a teacher-centered one, as it happens in a traditional classroom. And then, well, how did it begin? Who introduced this concept? These are important questions we need to answer. Well, this concept started in an American high school where two teachers, Aaron Sams and Jonathan Bergman, realized that because of sports activities, many of their students kept missing classes, and then they had to repeat their lessons over and over again, using much of their free time to do so. Around more or less 2007, they found it was possible to record a PowerPoint presentation, include their voice, make a video even of them presenting the information. And then, well, they started making these videos available online and telling their students to watch them at home. Well, the feedback these absent students provided was so positive that the students who were actually in class also started watching the videos, which gave these teachers an idea. They thought, well, why not use this strategy as a regular basis? This might work. Well, and imagine it did. They realized that by asking the students to watch the videos before coming to class, they actually had more time in class to more practical tasks, to project-based activities, which was definitely more motivating, not only for the students, but also for the teachers. Well, the students, on one hand, felt more empowered as they were an active part of their learning. And on the other hand, the teachers were able to change practices, and they eventually influenced our other teachers in other schools as well around America. Imagine this. And now you ask me, well, how can we flip our English classroom? What can I do? Okay, so let's look at some suggestions. As we saw before, the basic idea of a flipped classroom is having your students watch a video, read or listen to information at home, and then practice in class. Take, for example, a grammar lesson. What can you do? Well, you can record a video of you explaining the information or, well, one you have available. Share it with your students and ask them to watch it. Well, I would say give them a short assignment so you can check whether they watch it or not. For example, a task sheet with really specific questions about the video. When they come to class, they will be ready to do some practical work. Your class time, I think, will be more effective. You will focus more on production by having your students use new language structures and actually engaging them in the context you want them to learn. It will also be possible to dedicate more time to those students who cannot keep up with more advanced ones, or, well, I would suggest you to join them in groups and also develop their collaborative skills. Another example of an activity you can do is when you want your students to prepare a debate or another speaking task. So imagine you want them to comment on a TED Talk. They can watch a video, we suggest, then work on the vocabulary. And then when they come to class, after you check their understanding of the video and the information they just watched, they can work in pairs or groups, use the information they got, and prepare their speaking task. They can discuss the ideas in small groups or hold a 10-minute debate, which is very interesting. Well, you can also use or prepare a larger one, depending on the topic you are working on. I can tell you my students love this type of activity. I feel they are much more committed, they are engaged in speaking tasks when I use this strategy in my lessons. Other activities that are really successful among students are the project-based ones. Imagine a role play, for instance. You present them some situations related to the topic you are dealing with, for instance, teen issues, and then they would be responsible for creating the script for their role play. To do that, they will have to do some research on the topic. They have to collect information, select that information, and then when in class, also in groups, I would say, create their role play. Collaboration, interaction are skills your students will develop for sure. And I can guarantee they will have a blast, and then their learning will be really, really meaningful. So as we saw from these examples, a flipped classroom can have many advantages. Not only the students, but also the teachers can benefit from this strategy. Well, by having a student-centered education, your students will actually feel empowered. They will feel they are an effective part of their learning process, which will increase their motivation and confidence, I think. By knowing the information in advance, they will have more time to practice and also manage their time. They will be better prepared for productive activities as well. The confidence we talked about before will be present. I'd say this strategy also helps develop the students' autonomy. Well, after all, they can decide whether to watch the videos or not, right? Their interactive skills can also develop, and they will for sure. Here I'm not talking just about the interaction between students, but also the interaction between teacher and students, which leads us now to the advantages this strategy can have also for the teachers, as we saw. Well, I think, communication will really be more effective. You will be able to communicate with your students in a more individual way. You will act as a mentor, a guide, a facilitator of their learning, and this can be really, really beneficial. Using this strategy in your lessons will also help you dedicate more time to discussing ideas, analyzing situations, solving problems your students may have in certain topics, and making your teaching and their learning more effective and empowering your students. Well, I'll conclude with this quote by Grace Murray Hopper. She was a mathematician and a pioneer in developing computer technology. Well, but I think this is really adequate for the topic we are addressing here today. The most damaging phrase in the language is, "It's always been done that way." Well, we constantly need to find different and more challenging ways to meet our students' needs and boost their motivation and learning. So why not flip our classroom once in a while and change things a bit? I think it would work. Now, thanks for your time. Feel free to ask any questions you may have or provide feedback using the email english@porteditora.pt. We'd love to hear from you.